wants it to be able to be explained to him with words and language. So what he's going to try to do is use these diagrams to make analogies out of physical representations so that you can intuit it. So when people are watching this, what I'm saying about these diagrams don't represent the physical world. It doesn't actually represent what's going on in your mind-body uh, uh, relationship or whatever while you're living currently in a human body. This is something to just induce an intuition. So here's the the eccentric circles. This is how they work. The outside, the reason they're labeled 1 is because they are untampered with and they don't cross with other circles. But as soon as you go into this, you'll notice that 2 circles are overlapping each other. That's where you get the 2. The 3, it's 3 circles, 4 until finally you get to the center. That's kind of how this works. So he goes to show you, he's giving these diagrams as representations of the psychic structure, basically the mental structure. A lot of these English words are poor translations from the Spanish language, so they speak differently. You know, and he's from Argentina who wrote this. So they mean slightly different things coming from Argentina speaking correct Spanish in the 80s. So you got to forgive some of these words. He doesn't mean psychic like some new age term. He doesn't mean extraterrestrial like green space aliens or whatever. So like try to bend your mind and just have an open mind and just try to fit it into your worldview, what this means. So psychic structure or mental structure of the Pasu. Remember, there were 3 types. Pasu, which is the primitive, the spiritless, the Virya, and the Siddha. The Virya can either be asleep or awake, or lost or found. Those are interchangeable terms. So in this diagram, on the outside circle of the individual, we have 1 unit here, 1 Pasu. There's the exterior world that lays beyond this outer circle, which is the sensorial sphere. So this right here is analogous of all the 5 senses, everything that you can go even further into like Steiner's 12 senses, your sense of balance, heat, or warmth, or whatever. All the senses that you experience are on this outer. Well, when you go deeper into it, we start to get into what the mind starts to process. So he denotes the Pasu as having an affective, basically an emotional sphere, a rational or an intellectual sphere, the pre-consciousness or the subconsciousness, and then in the center where all these lap is the instinct. Okay, so over here in this one, if we're following the law of the eccentric circles that I showed you before, you'll notice that this space is a pre-conscious affective sphere. This one would be a pre-conscious rational sphere in this area. And in here you have all 3 interacting over instinct. Now, let's see if I can find some reading here, because this is some interesting stuff that because it applies to the Pasu, or the what we would say is the non-white, the furthest thing away from the white gods. Okay, so let's see here. Particular second, we must again to let's see here. Let's back up. Let's back up. We can now understand the suprafinality of creation. The work of the demiurge requires a post-discovery, and that is the finality of the animal man, or Pasu, to be a discoverer of entities, a bidder of meaning. But what is it that is covered by the entities, that which the Pasu must discover to fulfill its destiny? Answer: the names, the words that the acoustic Kabbalah mentions, or the bihas of the Indo-Aryan tradition. But the answer requires further clarification. First, to comprehend what we refer to by the name, quote unquote, of the entities, one must remember that the evolutive impulse of the monads has been affirmed with the logos aspect of the demiurge. It signifies that every entity is designated from the beginning by the word of the demiurge, that each entity has been assigned a word that metaphysically identifies it, sustains it as an entity, and constitutes the true essence of the entity for the Pasu. Second, we must again distinguish, when considering the archetypal order, between the finality and the suprafinality. By finality, we allude to the intellectual concretion toward which points the evolution of the entities. In every entity, there is one universal terminus that is the expression of the archetypes that sustain it, and the process of which it subordinates itself to. With the suprafinality, we refer, on the other hand, to the particular design that each entity possesses, as it is comprised of monads. It is not that the monads are in the entity, but that the archetypal order in which all matter participates is structured on the basis of the actualization of the monads. An archetypal quantum of energy, or archetypal atom, of which the Bohr atom is only a superficial schema, corresponds to each monad on the material plane. In reality, the same universal archetypes are comprised of monads, which is why they are also called archetypal. For they come from the first emanation of the demiurge, whereas the archetypes are ideas conceived about the monads in the second emanation. The universal archetypes are thus forms that go from the simple to the complex, comprised from groupings of the absolute formative unit that is the archetypal monad. It is not true, then, that the universal archetypes are all perfect and simple ideas, side note, like the Platonists propound, but on the contrary, they have been structurally conformed by successive and ordered imitation of the archetypal monad. It can be said that the whole universe has been constructed from a primary monad, tirelessly emanated by the demiurge. That is why the essential characteristic of the demiurge is imitation. That is a huge point in all of this work, is the essential characteristic being imitation, because he has the chosen race.
What is the demiurge?
We would say that that's the creator god. Let me show you a diagram real quick. Let me back up. This one right here. So Hitler, he's setting up a mythos here. This isn't really a real conversation, but Hitler's talking to this Hitler youth, right? And he's trying to say, yeah, you're right about the demiurge in our fight against Jehovah Satan. And he lays out this cosmology for the kid. And this is basically it. On the top, you have the Platonic one, right? That creates what we call the universe, the thing that when we wake up and we go outside and we start to experience, we see the stars and the night sky, the daytime, and the sun and the moon. All of that you can sense here on Earth is in the material cosmos. It is the one, or the demiurge. Now, when you go to sleep, it's trickier. All the dreams that you perceive through the astral light, all that is the demiurge as well. It's made out of material, astral light that he forms out of those archetypal monads that he was just mentioning. They're archetypes from the demiurge's mind, and he tirelessly holds them up. He's basically asleep, dreaming, like the Brahma of the Vedas. He's dreaming this reality for us, and we participate in it. So on the top, the demiurge, and then he starts to emanate himself so that he can extend and create the great chain of being, or the cosmological hierarchy. Below him, you have, under the demiurge, you'll notice these words, cosmic logos. That's what these words denote. The whole cosmos, the cosmic mind would be the demiurge. Below that is the solar logos. Now, this gets pretty esoteric. If you're unfamiliar with like mystery traditions, or the Western mystery tradition specifically, then a lot of this will go above you, but let's not spend too much time on that. This is the solar logos, or the mind of the sun. This plasmates through the sun every form into the material world through the demiurge. And then you have the world. In the Buddhists call it Sanat Kumara. He denotes it the terrestrial logos. That's the earth. So you have the cosmos, the sun, and the earth. And the earth is comprised of these beings. Now he goes straight to the Viryas. The heart of the earth is actually the Jewish race, or the chosen people. He would lean more towards saying the chosen people, because the Jewish race is just that's who it happens to be right now. Just like calling him Jehovah Satan is just It's arbitrary. It's just who we recognize him as now, because it's the name that has the most power and control and displays itself as such in the world. So if the Abrahamic religion's God's name was Heebie-Jeebie, then it would be the one and then Heebie-Jeebie. You know what I'm saying? It's an arbitrary thing, these names. So when we say Jewish race, it could be different later if if the eternal battle or the war keeps going and subsists through time. If the Jewish race ceases to exist, or if it transforms itself and hides under a different racial name, we would have to redefine it. So I just wanted to make that note. So the Jewish race would be the heart. If you look to the left here, he's pointing at what this is, the heart of the earth, or in Buddhism, Anahata Chakra, doctrine of the heart. I'm sorry, did you say something?
No. Just people are coming in and out. I'm just sitting here listening.
Yeah,
I'm trying to wrap my brain around all this shit, right? You know what I mean?
This is
a lot on this fucking chart.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And this is wrapping up what you find in different books too. So he doesn't go further in this book on explaining this. You have to get this from another tome that he wrote, which is 600 pages long. So the doctrine of the heart is real important too, because there's all these principles and fundamentals in Hyperborean wisdom. We don't live by the heart. We say the heart warms the soul. So we actually believe in making the man cold. We want to become cold like a stone. We don't want to follow the doctrine of the heart. That's like Jesus and Muhammad and all the other Abrahamic religions. They want you to love the mother or the father or whatever. It's underpinning is this love, which is an absolute weakness. They put love as the highest virtue in all their religions. We say that honor is the highest virtue because it actually encapsulates love as well. Because honor could mean protecting your family, which is an expression of love, but that doesn't mean we put love above honor, which these people do. They'll put love above honor. They'll actually sacrifice their own families to the fire for loving a god, loving a tyrannical, schizophrenic god that demands child sacrifice, for instance. So the Jewish race it underpins all the wings. So it's a false dichotomy. He says that the right wing, which would be in America, we call it conservatism. In South America, they call conservatives liberals. Like when Milo became president, remember he said, "I'm a liberal," and people started freaking out about that because in America they thought that meant leftist, but it's not. So you have to do some background research on these words. Like I said, this is coming from
I 100% understand that part of the concept because I was reading something from Dave Green earlier about fucking the liberal ideologies, and he kept calling them progressives, and I go, no, it's liberal. It's the merchant class, right? It's the ideas of the merchant class, and that's what liberalism really. Liberalism is the religion of the merchant, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I know
exactly. Yeah, you could go back to Venice with that. Yeah, you could go back even further. Right here, this is where it gets a little, the diagram, it breaks down. So you have these lines here that separate these planes, right? You see, it says plane of ideologies, plane of praxis, plane of bases of action, and then the strategic objective. So they cover all planes. We can just go through them real quick. Right wing, you got liberalism, political, and economic. And right here, you'll notice that there's two sets of rectangles in these columns. Well, this line here would be the political face. And then behind each one of these is the hidden or the esoteric face of the synarchy. So behind the liberalism and the political and the economic, you have masonry and other sects. What's funny is these are across the board, right? He's accurate with this assessment. In the middle, the centrist, left of center, right of center, you got the Hebraic tradition. They remember, and this is experienced in American politics, bipartisan agreement is always on Israel, the support of Israel. They disagree on partisan issues, small divisive issues. But when it comes to the Hebraic tradition, both aisles submit. You'll notice that in politics. but synarchic politics. If it's anti-synarchic, if you actually have we call anti-synarchic hyperborean, like Iran, or North Korea. There's certain people that still want to separate from the synarchy and hold on to their own nation and their own aspirations. So those are just some examples. But anyway, behind the Hebraic, you got Masonry and B'nai B'rith, which is the Jewish Masonry, basically. Marxism, Masonry and other sects. Those are the ideologies. And how they perform their praxis Marxism would turn into communism. And its esoteric face would be subversive left-wing organizations behind those. BLM, NAMBLA, you name it, Antifa, Western democracies, Oriental esoteric sects. This is where it gets weird. You have certain. Remember, he's from the 80s, in the early 90s before he died. So
everybody's a people of their time, right? At the end of the day,
exactly. So these guys were actually going to speak with Buddhists, and the Dalai Lama was a conservative at one point. There's a history behind this when you dig into these words and their connections. Pressure groups, look, neocons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an old
plane
term
of
at this
base
point, right?
action.
That's wild.
What'd you say?
That's an old term at this point. Ain't that fucking wild?
It's wild, right? In the 80s, they were ahead of their time. They were spotting the fifth column and the neocons, even in Argentina. He wrote some books on the fascism that was trying to be established in Argentina and how it failed against the socialists. That's an interesting book as well.
Well, no, I mean, like, everybody knew about the neocons back in the day, right? I mean, like, the neocons have always been an issue, right? But it's wild that they're gone now. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even exist anymore. Like, fucking, they bounced in the last 5 years.
Are you saying neocons bounced?
Yeah.
No. Neocons are neoconservatives. They exist in the most predominant.
I know who they are, right? But they don't exist anymore for the most part. Like, they do.
They do. They're the most prevalent. I'm trying to correct it. So, the most prevalent in conservative politics are neocons. That's all we have. We don't actually have any paleo conservatives anymore. They're all neocons. That's why they support Israel. That's why he's labeling them neocons here, because they see. Remember, the Jewish race is at the top.
Yeah. How do I put this?
A neocon is a rhino. It's a Republican in name only.
Yeah. Again, but they barely exist anymore. Like, the entire Republican Party now is basically like just a Trump wing at this point. Like, they're really heavily populist based.
Trump is a neocon.
I mean, you probably Listen, I'm gonna let you go because I'm gonna let you be on that one at the moment. You know, because like he's been most definitely acting like one here recently.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of them. That Lindsey Graham. I mean, there's a shit ton of them. You just go down the list, and they're pretty much all neocons. In the middle, the praxis of the Hebraic tradition, Zionism, Jewish infiltration organizations, penetration secrets, the base of action, the state of Israel, secret services, Amman, Mossad, Shin Bet. You got Europe, USA, and satellites, the free world, secret services organizations, free world militaries, NATO, CIA. You could say Blackwater. It just transforms names over time. Soviet Union and satellites, secret services, KGB, AUCCTU. So this is the world government. All of it's trying to bleed down and connect the one into the world. But you'll notice, back up top here into the more metaphysical realm of things, he goes into the mythology of the esoteric traditions, and he says that all of them claim these secret locations in the world. And long story short, you'll just have to read the books yourself. But there are secret histories. There are diaries and shit. Like, if you've ever read John Dee's diaries, it's huge. It's 2 volumes. It's like 2,400 pages. He talks about with the Queen going and trying to find hidden lands that move. They come in and out of existence and stuff. It's pretty interesting stuff. They try to come up with ceremonial magical operations to try to lock the place and stay to open the gate to the place to get into it and stuff. This is all.
Is that why they want to go to Mars, like in Doom with the demon technology? They want to take me to Mars. Well, not me, because I don't have a golden ticket to get on their little ark.
Neurojack, is that what you wanted to hear right there, buddy? You wanted to ruin a cool little conversation? You know what I mean? A cool
Yeah,
presentation?
it's a cool little conversation, but yet anyone who has eyes to eat, Jesus, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. You know the whole shtick about the Bible. Anyone who's paid attention, who's seen what they put in your face, since at least I've been.
All right, anyway, right. So, I had a question about this Agartha thing over here, though. The Christo,
Yeah.
Lucifer. What is this?
Yeah, that's what I was just describing. So there are these places in the world. They're physical places, but they're subterranean. And this is where the high initiates live, and they plan, and they do things that defy natural law there. It's out of sight of people who believe and reinforce or what's the other word? Reify natural law. This is where the second degree determinacy of the demiurge actually allows these people to do miraculous things in these places. Some say they're immortal. There are immortal siddhas there. So the Shambhala would be the synarchic or the enemy, right? This is the center of the world. If you subscribe like I do to a level plane Earth, this would be the North Pole. All right. If you believe in a globe, it would be the center of the world. Within the world, like a hollow Earth or something. Under Shambhala, you have the occult hierarchy of the Earth, which is like they call themselves like the Great White Brotherhood in the mystery traditions, which is funny because they want to be the White Brotherhood, but they're not. They're actually anti-white. They're white traitors. The Elders of Zion, the Men in Black, the Druids.
Well,
the Druids are not.
I still kind of want to know about like this Agartha, Christo, Lucifer, hyperborean, Cetas.
Oh yeah, I'm getting there. I'm just trying to lay it all out because this is the opposing place. They're two different places. They're antipodal. So this would be the North Pole. This would be the South Pole, or the Antarctic Ring. It's the outside of the world. This is why the Nazis, when they fled, the story or the mythos is that the U-boats, they actually went into Antarctica because that's where the home base was. That's where Agartha was. There are some maps that show subterranean caverns called Agartha on their German maps. So they claim to have maybe found it when they established New Schwaben. And supposedly there's a story about Admiral Byrd. I don't know how accurate it is or if it's authentic, but he goes down to Antarctica with a fleet and they have to turn around. They lose real quick and they lose ships and planes and stuff. So this is the base for the loyal Siddhas.
From what I understand, like a lot of that shit came out of a diary that was written by his son or his daughter.
So it's his diary, but it was given to us by a family member.
No.
So
it was written by a family member. It wasn't written by him.
No, I own it. I have the book. And we don't know how true it is, but the story is that it's a family member who found it. It's his writing. It's him talking about going there in the plane, being dragged into the subterranean cavern on autopilot by these tall white beings. And yeah, it seems pretty miraculous.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like that shit,
fiction.
you know what I mean? Like that there, as a whole, that was, supposedly that was written by his, like, fucking, his son or daughter, because, like, nobody ever heard him speak that shit.
I just agree to disagree. You just go by the book.
I don't know. Like, that's the rumor I heard. You know what I mean? Was that, like, it's one of the people
I've read
who, like,
the book.
his
So
daughter,
I'm
like,
telling
his,
you
or
what it is.
one of his kids wrote it and, like, tried to pass it off as his.
Oh, that could be the case. It could be a forgery. I believe it's a forgery.
Yeah, that's my mental. That's what I heard. I'm not, you know what I mean?
It claims in the book to be him writing it.
Yeah, but as I said, like, from what I understand, I think, like they said, it was a forgery, right? It's just like...
I agree with that. I buy it. It seems too... and there's some things that are a little sus about it that basically try to say that the Agarthians are similar to the Synarchists. It's trying to, like, paint them off as Synarchists. So I don't really abide by it. But there's more story about Agartha besides recent history. The Tulkus are the ones that gave the SS order the route to get there. So it was these Buddhists who actually had this esoteric tradition about the opposing Shambhala versus Agartha dichotomy. So Agartha is where the loyal Siddhas, or the actual true loyal whites, live today, and they exist and they're immortals. They inhabit bodies. The Vedas call them the Vajra bodies of Vajra, or the diamond body, that they're incorruptible bodies. Right. A lot of this, like I said, defies natural law. So if you're someone who isn't into the esoteric tradition or magic, then this is going to seem like, yeah, whatever, cool story, bro. Which is fine, because this isn't for everyone. This is for a select few who have walked a certain path and maybe resonate with it. So in Agartha, they basically hold the key to Thule, or Thule. It's this place that we define as a plaza. It's a place made by the minds of loyal Siddhas where they can hide away from the eye of the demiurge. The demiurge can see and feel everything in the material cosmos. It can feel your body and your heartbeat right now. But as soon as you learn the praxis, we call it erecting the Archimen, there's this practical side of this work too, which is sort of like ceremonial magic. You draw this circle, you set up these stones outside of the circle, and you have to do some contemplative work. It's sort of like apophatic mysticism. And basically, you can disappear from the eye of the demiurge. That's what Thule is. It's like this place that they retreat into and hide for the time being, and they employ a strategy and try to fight the cosmos. The whole underpinning to this cosmology is that we're in a war. We're in a spiritual war between traitorous whites and loyal whites, and that they're using the world to try to put meaning into the forms. Because when the demiurge made the world, all he could make was these monkey men, these animal men called Pasu, and they couldn't put meaning into the forms. So he couldn't ever arrive at a finality. He couldn't connect the higher parts of the cosmos to the lower part, which is the world. So he had to trick. This is earlier in the writing. The mythology here is a big grand mystery. We don't know how this literally happened, but we can assume philosophically that if there's an eternity, like we build up from this ontology, that being is eternal, and if we're eternal, then we must come from this place that's eternal. We call it the origin. We say that the one, or the demiurge, is also from the origin, but he slips outside of the origin so that he can tamper with the material cosmos, the matter. In the Hebrew Bible, they say it's the waters. There's this thing that the God goes over, and as he's passing over the deep, it's the waters. Well, that God is the one, the demiurge, and he's coming out of the origin and looking at the waters so that he can formulate them with the word. He can form the matter, the putty of the waters. So what he does is once he sets up the material cosmos in the world, and he has the hominid man, the animal Pasu, he starts to lure other spirits into the world. And he does that with certain, there's a handful of reasons. One could be like lust, like a sexual desire for a counterpart. Because like if you're an eternal being, right, and you're by yourself forever, constantly, and then you finally see outside of the origin this little exit and this potentiality of maybe sharing it with somebody else, you leave. Your weakness of, wanting to be with a counterpart, you leave. We call that the mystery of love, or the mystery of amour. So he goes out, and then he finds himself confused and in a body. And now he has to play the game of the demiurge while he's in the body. And what happens is over time, living in a body, your brain interfaces, the spirit starts to think through the brain, and it communicates with the body. And it starts to think that that world that it lives in is real. So it starts to develop a soul, and this soul builds over time. And when you die, that soul thinks all those thoughts, and it has all those impressions of those feelings you had in the world, and it inevitably draws you back to the world because you've lost the memory of the origin. You can't conceive of how to return to the home. Now you're addicted to the world. So you keep coming back and back.
Is that why I gotta be a born again Christian?
So yeah, that's what Agartha is. Agartha is where these people meet, and it's like they control the gates to how to get out of the material cosmos. You'll see that there's a big black line right here. This black line is indicating that it's separate from all of this stuff.
Yeah, I
All of the
got that
one
part
and
right.
demiurge.
And then like so the China and satellites, the Catholic Church, Islam, Buddhism says non-synarchic part of the great religions.
Yeah, yeah. So there are certain sects inside. This gets broken down in the book. There's another book, and it's 1,000 pages plus. It's called The Mystery of Hyperborean Wisdom, and or The Mystery of Belicina Vilca. That's the authorized version, and it explains how there are these Hyperboreans who awake, but they're already invested as they grow up in religions. So they battle over time on taking control of the religions. So, like for instance, he gives an example of the Benedictines, or she does. She writes these letters to him, and she's explaining the history of how the Hyperboreans have to hide within Christianity, kind of like the Moranos, the crypto Jews, kind of had to do for their religion. The Hyperboreans had to do the same, because as soon as they reveal themselves, the eye of the demiurge sets upon them, and they'll destroy him. So the Catholic Church had the Dominicans. He would say that the Dominicans were Hyperborean, and they give historical examples, like certain decrees and papal bulls that are totally seemingly that go against what the Catholic Church is trying to achieve. It starts to say, no, we want to destroy and eliminate all Jews in this country, or they need to be expelled, right? But then another pope finally comes into power. They overthrow a pope or kill him, poison him, and then they're like, oh no, we actually need to let all the Jews back in, and they can clip coins, and usury's okay. And so there's like these battles that are going on within the Catholic Church, within Islam, within Buddhism, etc. You can go through the whole list. You could say that even with certain pagan traditions, that there were leaders, kings of the blood pact, who were like, no, we're not buying Christianity. And they eventually had to go to war and fight about it. And they were overpowered and eliminated from history. We also say that this is a good thing, because if the premise here is that the spirit is trying to separate from the matter, it's trying to return to the origin and escape the material world, then if you die in battle, that's honorable. You've executed through valor and honor the resistance against the demiurge or the material cosmos. So we say that if you die in battle, the spirit can incarnate into a Vajra, a diamond body.
But they told me the worst thing for me as a Christian is lay down my life even for my enemy. How's okay?
They don't say that that's the worst thing. He actually says to do that.
Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, for sure. That's why it's the doctrine of the heart. It's all about love, your neighbor and your enemy. We say no, destroy and kill your enemy. There is no such thing as karma. Fight with honor. Honor is the main virtue here.
That's right. And when the fire rains down on the unwashed masses, I told you so.
So we say that Christo.
We say, or so like that. Like all right. So that just says etc. there, right? Underneath of that, like underneath the Catholic Church.
Yeah, because you can go ad infinitum with any religion.
Okay.
They're within them. The Hyperboreans fill the world through misogyny. When the Blood Pact was traveling across the world, they were in order. They were promising them, saying, okay, well, if you want to accept the Blood Pact, we will sleep with your kind, and you will have the chance to return to the origin. You'll be able to make it back. So we put the spirit into them. This is where you get the yellow race.
The yellow race? Like the Asians?
Yeah, the Asians, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They say that these were serpents or whatever, pale-skinned giants with lightning eyes or whatever, flaming eyes. Okay. They were dragon gods, essentially, or whatever. They same thing in South America. They just go in different directions, and they basically say, here's how you survive. Don't there's certain rules and parameters that they set up. Like one of them, what I was telling you earlier, is the use of metals, only to a certain extent, because they knew that within the metal there was, we call it the potencies of matter, which is basically the essence of the demiurge lies within metal, because it will eventually lead to the intellecty, which it's doing now, which is the tech, the merging of tech in the biological organism, which is the singularity, which will lead to the final man, which earlier there's terms that he hasn't introduced yet. He just says them, and then later you get them, the definitions, like this one, Manu. See, look, it says, true God, it is necessary to go a long way of blood purification to know something about God, about the true God, as you rightly say. The majority of the great religions, when speaking of God, actually refer to the one demiurge. This occurs because the races that currently populate the world have been worked by the demons of Shambhala, implanting in them synarchic ideas in the genetic memory of their members, in order to be able to direct them toward the great collective archetype called Manu. The Manu is the singularity man, this man that merges with tech. He's immortal on the earth, and he praises God for the opportunity to give him the chance to be immortal forever in a body on earth.
The witch god.
The demiurge. There is no God. So like when the hyperborean says, like when Hitler says true God here, notice that it's in quotes, because the God to the hyperborean, the true God, the incognizable, see up here it says God is incognizable for anyone who has not conquered the Vril. So this incognizable God, the best way to describe it, because remember, we all come from an eternal place called the origin. We're not created. We're uncreated. We're eternal. So we exist forever already. Well, that means that in the origin, for someone to be the true God, right, would be the most charismatic member of that spiritual race that inhabits the origin. We call him the chieftain or the Führer. He's this charismatic member who didn't fall. He didn't leave the origin. He didn't for 1 second think about abandoning the origin for matter. He's not weak. He has absolute blood purification. And when we say blood here, that's a dualistic term. It has two meanings. We mean, yeah, physical blood in some cases, but in this case, when I'm talking about the incognizable God's blood, we mean a spiritual blood. You could postulate plasmatic, like Reddington was doing earlier. But anyway, so we say that Christos Lucifer, that their Christ is trying to emulate the very ancient mythos of Lucifer. That's why there's certain Jesus Christ in the Bible is a mixture of Jehovah and Lucifer. They're trying to graft the demiurge onto Lucifer so that any hyperborean who for a second almost wakes up and encounters Christianity, he can sense the hyperborean message within Christ's teachings, but then it's watered down with the Judaic, he calls it the Judaic mental construction. So there's this idea, all these overlaying concepts of the Jewish God onto Christ, so that when he almost wakes up, he's like, oh, but yeah, I got to love my neighbor. Oh, yeah, but those who think I come to bring peace, you know what I'm saying, knoweth not, I come to bring a sword to divide mother from daughter, father from son, or whatever. There's all these conflicting messages because he wants to appeal slightly to the hyperborean to lure him into the Christianity so that he can be docile and he doesn't awaken. Well, this wisdom is trying to cancel that out because the Christos has been a thing, and it's an ancient concept. I mean, the Grecians had it, the Romans had it. You notice, like, a lot of the Roman emperors went with that title, that nomiker. They went with Christ or whatever. They weren't being called Jesus Christ. They were just Christ because that was the anointed one or whatever. It was an actual title or a term. So we know what that is, and we're trying to reclaim it. So when we say Christos Lucifer, we're talking about one of these members of the spiritual race who came here to
it
try to
sounds like a lot of
reclaim us.
Gnostic. It sounds like a lot of Gnostic stuff in
Where's
here.
Dracula? Hey Dracula, are you out there? The blood is the life.
Like it sounds Gnostic. Like there's a lot of like
It
Gnostic
it is.
ideology
There's a
here.
lot of Gnostic tone to it, but we would say that it goes further. Like in the very beginning, there's a disclaimer because yeah, that's the first thing that somebody comes across. They go, "Is this Gnostic?" But like we've only went through literally sentences, man. This is thousands of pages, and I'll end it here so I don't go too far. But I'll just say like right here it says, here. Let me see if I can just word search real quick. Gnostic. I know it's in the beginning. I do. The brave shores of Gnostic, greater or lesser, double nature. All eyes of the Gnostic points.
Yeah, here we go. We have said normally these are Gnostic points.
Oh yeah, that gets crazy. If you can just make it past the very beginning, the spirit sphere part, I promise you will not be displeased. You will be blown away with his explanation. It resolves the philosophical problem of the one and the many.
That's just crazy that you had, or people would have to read this for me to understand this, which is what I've understood with what I've experienced. That's crazy. I didn't need this entire presentation to understand a single word you said.
Well,
I've just
you're
been
not the only human
bugging.
being who exists. Do you know that?
I know that. I'm just
Are you
saying.
sure? Are
I
you
mean,
sure?
are we saying that this is reality?
No, no, no. Like what we're saying is like you're not the only human who exists. You know what I mean? Like there's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what I mean, like believe it or not,
Oh,
like
are you Morpheus? Are you Morpheus?
nah, you're that's not the only human who has ever lived. Right? It's crazy shit, crazy work. Like, there's more humans out here. You know what I mean? Like imagine if like you had like a YouTube channel and you wanted to like reach a bunch of people with like a message, or just in general like introduce them to like new things. You know what I mean? That they might not have ever heard before. Right?
But
And
they
like
don't want new things.
no, but like they do. Humans do want new things because like
Mm.
humans enjoy, you know what I mean, like new foods and ideas and you know what I mean, like fucking learning new information.
Oh,
It's
they
great.
want new things, just not the good kind. Well, not for certain people.
I mean, but like everybody kind of like, you know, a lot of the motherfuckers who follow me and Nerdjack, like everybody who follows Nerdjack, 100% is like searching for something. And this might be something they might reach for. And so it's like a good thing. That's why it's like, you know, like I fucking muted you and Dude out. That way we could have this
Yeah,
presentation and
yeah. I
like let
search
that
for
happen.
things too, like private islands with masquerade balls
I
where
don't care, bro.
billionaires
Listen,
and
we're not talking about
trillionaires.
that right
So,
now. Again, we're not talking about
oh, you
you.
should.
We're not talking about you and what you do. Do you understand?
Well, unless you're going to go there and
Wait.
talk
Oh,
to one
wait.
of
Are
them
we talking
yourself, you're
about
not
you?
exposing anything that nobody doesn't know.
Wait,
So,
are we talking about you though, buddy?
this stuff has been on the internet since the early fucking 2000s, and people are still living under the exact same ruler that they were 20 or 30.
There we go. Okay, so listen. When you're done talking about you, I'll unmute you. Message me, and let me know when you're done talking about you, buddy. Right. Yeah, so like this, it sounds very Gnostic, right? Like, because I've heard a lot of this stuff from like the Gnostic informant, you know what I mean? Like at least some of this, and like from some other Gnostic YouTube channels that have like brought some of this stuff out.
Damn it.
What are you looking for?
Yeah, it does. It sounds very Gnostic, but we say there's certain things that don't restrict it to just Gnosticism. When we say Gnostic, most of the times he uses the word Gnostic, he isn't talking about the philosophical school of thought, but he means literally the term as if it's like a noun. These are the Gnostic points. God, man, it may
Well,
be in a
what
later
does
page.
Gnostic actually mean? Like, what's the
It's like a transcendent knowledge.
okay?
It's not knowledge obtained with the intellect or the emotions or the brain body interface. It's beyond that. It's intuitional. It's recollected from the memory.
I mean, isn't
We're trying to
intuitional kind
restore.
of that though?
No, it's intuitional defies logic.
Hold on. Like I'm not trying to like argue with you. You know what I mean? I always felt like
No, no,
intuition was, you know what I mean?
I appreciate
Like
the
when the brain and the
challenges or
body
whatever.
kind of like when you're not when you're dealing with your conscious, your subconscious, you know what I mean? And you're like you're fucking you're tactical or tactile, like fucking vision
No, we say that it
senses.
seemingly arises out of the blood, that it's something deep that isn't connected with the mind. It's something you feel, like nostalgia runs through your body. Like the intuitional realizations that one has that are truly intuitional, they don't seem to come from you thinking. They come from beyond thinking. Ah, damn it, man. Okay, well, I have to save that for another time. It's weird. I don't think I'm typing it in right. It might be Gnostics or Gnosticism. Maybe, let's see. Because I think the word has to be correct. Because, man, the way he writes things sometimes are pretty interesting. He lays things out pretty clearly. I'm not the best speaker. Um,
Yo, you are
he
kicking
does
ass as
lay
far
out
as I'm
like
concerned, man. Listen, this has been like a really great presentation that you've given here.
in the beginning he gives a really short outline really quickly of like the steps, right? He says like, in the salutation to the readers of the fundamentals, this is the letter to the elect. Notice he doesn't say chosen, right? Look, in the name, like right here in the header, he doesn't say chosen, but later he will. In the name of the Tyrodal Knights and in his own, the author offers a comrade salute, a sign of honor to those who have been chosen in two worlds to receive the fundamentals of the Hyperborean wisdom. To those who have this book in their hands and who have received it from ours, we welcome and wish you luck on the first test, its reading and comprehension. On the success of such a test will depend future steps. This is crucial right here. He lays it out quickly, which won't make sense right now, but when you go through it, it's crazy how it's all right here. The Hyperborean initiation, the neither spatial nor temporal, but strategic transit toward the Selbst, toward terrestrial Hyperborea, toward Thule, toward Agartha, toward Valhalla, toward Venus, toward the origin, toward the original Hyperborea, outside of the demented material universe created by the One, toward the eternity of the Spirit, near the incognizable God and Christos Lucifer, the great chief of the race of the Hyperborean spirits. Such short amount of words, but this sums up the transit on the steps, because there's a shit ton that goes into this. Look at it. Look, 1,049 pages. This is 2 volumes, and it's not like just some basic shit. This is like academic level shit here. It's very hard, and you got to take your time. Like when he gets into the nodes and bonds of the mind and how to transcend, imminent thinking, it's wild, man. This is crazy stuff. He was a what was it? A something chemist, or something biologist and an engineer or something. He was like a polymath, but he had multiple degrees in certain trades, and it shows in this work because his diagrams. He's obviously an engineer, but his biological terminology and stuff like these. Some of these diagrams, this one right here, the conscious sphere, and he puts the nodes and bonds. He builds all this up. This was very hard to understand, and it took me like a month just on like a couple pages of this to fully digest what he's talking about on how the archetypes and all the correspondence between the nodes, which he calls a bond, you can basically freeze frame. The mind can actually isolate in time the correspondence between archetypes and redefine them. And when you redefine them, you basically impart your own meaning on an archetypal form, which transcends the immanent realm. So like there's other diagrams when you finally get the practice down. This is actually a practice. It's kind of like how Buddhists learn to meditate certain ways. This is like, you could say this is hyperborean meditation or contemplation. Like this one right here is wild. Optical analogy of the evolutive animic subject of the Passu. So he's using like optics as an analogy. Gets pretty wild. analogous to the exterior surface of the light sphere. So he's using those circles, those eccentric circles that we talked about earlier, to build upon. So we're trying to use the astral light off of the eccentric circles that we formulate in the mind as parameters or limits, sometimes non-limits, like infinite potentiality. It gets pretty crazy. But eventually you'll negate everything and you'll create your own meaning. And this is what he means by the selbst, or the self. This is when the white man actually wakes up to who he really is. There's a diagram here. See, the eccentric circles are still being used. You'll see the reverted spirit begins to reorient itself and approaches the awakened self. And the awakened self procures the manifestation of the tergum hostis, or the hostile back. That's what that means in Latin. So right here is the reverted sphere. You got to go through that first section or none of this makes sense. He builds on it so perfectly and methodically that if you just miss, like a paragraph, you're fucked, because you need it to make sense of what's going on here. This was, remember that optical analogy, the light sphere? This was that bent part of the circle, which you're trying to reflect on. So the inside of the sphere, when rays or gazes bounce off them, the lines become divergent. God, I always mix up those words. They unite into the center, the point of the center point of a circle. But eventually, the hostility will fill the man and finally pour to the outside, and he'll be filled with the vril. This is very crude and simple. I'm just trying to give you a taste of the diagrams. This takes, like I said, this is on page. So we're 331 pages in by this point. But way later, he goes into highly esoteric principles. Like, I want to show you the one with the intellect. He develops more on the. Remember, we were talking about the demiurge projects monads as archetypal forms. They embody the forms. They're the essence of the forms. Archetypal monads are. So he draws these diagrams and tries to explain how they come out of transcendence into immanence. Oh yeah, this is one right here. He uses the example of a horse. It's a really cool analogy that he gives. Let me see here. Oh, missed it. Here we go. It's beyond this. And then I'll end with showing you this, but this one's a really tasty diagram. Oh, no. Come on, bitch. This is the family tree. You were talking earlier about, future and progeny and having kids and, going into the future and becoming an ancestor. This part of the book is called the family test. And you'd be surprised if you read that. You would probably have a different assessment of what you said. You would probably see what you said entirely differently. This is how to use the uncreated runes as weapons, strategic forms. Oh, yeah. I think this is it. Actual system. Yeah. This is crazy, bro. This is too much. I'll let you look at it because there's so much nomenclature here that he uses that is unfamiliar with people. But the function of the evolutive process, these are like the monadic structure of the archetype flowing through into immanence. The ontic temporal series of actual horses. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just some simple new agey thing. This is probably the deepest esoteric book that I've ever come across. I was, like I said, I'm a Mason. I went through theosophy. I was deeply involved with the Golden Dawn's practices, went all the way to Minor Adeptus. I was into anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner's work, for 15 years straight. So I thought I came across heavy. This is the heaviest shit that I've come across, and it's crazy because it's the only book that tries to give.
Hang on. What is an ontic horse?
So the ontic would be the being aspect, but the temporality of the ontic. So it's becoming. Ontic is like, so ont or ontological would be like the study or the thinking about being. ontic would be like the being aspect of something. This gets highly philosophical. So when he says ontic temporal series, he's literally meaning the being in time that's moving. So in time, we see this object called a horse moving in imminence. It's galloping. It's moving through, it can go and it can chew on things, carrots, and then it can go lay down and go to sleep. Each one of these, as a human being, the mind can actually freeze frame the ontic process or the series of that ontic temporality. And this is crucial when trying to isolate oneself outside of time. The whole goal of him doing this is trying to instill in the initiate how to create a plaza. That's an esoteric term in hyperborean wisdom. It means to create, I explained it earlier. There's this area that you create where you're unseen by the demiurge. You're totally isolated from the material cosmos. You're separate from time. People who actually, I've not achieved this yet. I'm still working on it. But people who achieve it, the idea is that they end up contacting these siddhas, people who are wholeheartedly devoted to this. Some of them disappear. There's stories of members of this order, the Thyroidal Knights, people who were members of government. This guy right here who wrote this book was the ambassador to Germany of Argentina in the 80s. So he was involved in politics. He was brushing shoulders with Zionists and like getting information from them. He was basically like a triple agent. His mom ended up exposing this after he died. She ended up publishing on a blog all this information. Published his cards he worked for the CIA in America. All these different IDs, pictures with politicians. She just dumped the whole thing on the internet. So like his history came out. But there was some history that members here, like pilots of the Argentinian military who were hyperborean initiates, went to places and never came back.
What was his name?
Never retrieved, disappeared, and they supposedly did it on purpose. Like went to Agartha essentially. Say that again.
What's his name?
The guy who wrote the book.
Yeah.
Luis Felipe Moyano.
Last, how do you spell? What?
Moyano.
Moyano.
He wrote the books under a pseudonym. The pseudonym is Nimrod de Rosario. Supposedly he wrote 9 books. His mom was kind of sus, so it's a long story, but she was kind of off her rocker in her old age, like probably becoming too far removed from the physical world's reality. The story is that maybe she hid some of the books and never released them, and they've been lost to time. Like nobody knows where they are, or the order's hiding them on purpose. So all we have are 3 books, and then there's a few supplemental texts that were retrieved and translated. The 3 main books that he has, and you got to read them in order, because if you don't, it's patchy. But there is an order to read them in. The first one is called Secret History of the Thule Gesellschaft. The second one is called The Mystery of Belicina Vilca. And then the third one is this one we're looking at right now, which is the practical book. It's called The Fundamentals of Hyperborean Wisdom. Most people, when they're reading these titles, they think they should start with the one that's called Fundamentals, because that's only logical, right? But really, that's the hardest one out of all of it. And when you finally read the first 2 books and you get to this one, all the dots start connecting. It becomes really intense, all the realizations you start to have from previous readings. But he also said, but this is also a paradox. This wisdom does not have a doctrine. We don't claim that this is like a book that says this is the way, follow it, like the Bible or something. This isn't a Bible. This is just an attempt to try to nudge the person to awakening. And if you want to take it as far as he did, he's laying the path. He's like, this is what I did. But he straight up admits that this is just one of 8 strategic ways to fight the war, the battle. This certain one is called the strategy of opposition. So there's more though. Like there are people who take different routes or different paths. This is for like the Western man, the philosophical minded man who likes testing things and is a practical man. But also man with some nuts. Like it takes a warrior spirit to get through this stuff or even buy it. So yeah, that's that, man. That's that in a nutshell. There's a difference between the races, long story short. And our premise is if the world isn't worth keeping, then we're not trying to establish or formulate some plan to try to create a new politic or to try to somehow combat the tech with politic or a new economy or whatever. We're not necessarily concerned about that. We just want to try to exist until they remove us. Like we look at people in the past as examples like the Cathars. There were people who just were intolerable to the synarchy that they had to exterminate them, genocide them. There are these certain types of people. Usually they're hyperborean in spirit. They're not